Welcome to a right royal Really World show. This week we're at the Tower of London, where kings and queens of England have lived for hundreds of years. But in fact, we're going to be getting a bit regal ourselves as we take a look at some of the courtly creatures of the animal kingdom. Nick valiantly battles upstream in a race against the king of fish. Howie joins in a birthday banquet for a long-reigning tortoise. We travel back in time for a lesson in the noble art of falconry. Janice moves in high places when she meets Tony Blair, the lemur. And we check out the new dance craze that's all the rage in the bird world. And talking of raving, ravens have been at the Tower by royal appointment for hundreds of years. Charles II was told that if they ever left, the Tower would crumble and a terrible tragedy would strike the land. So, to make sure they stay, they have a yeoman warder to look after them. Morning, Dave.
Good morning, Michaela.
Morning. But you know, ravens aren't the only ones with royal connections, as Howie discovered.
Thank you, Christopher. You may return the car to the garage. I will not be purchasing it today, or any other day for that matter. Still, it's nice to dream. And if you really do have money, what better way of showing it off than with a big flash motor? But you know, it hasn't always been like that. 400 years ago, you'd show off who you were, not with a car, but with a bird.
That's right. In the days of Elizabeth I, you could tell how important someone was by looking at their hawk. We're talking about falconry, the ancient art of training birds of prey. In Elizabethan times, it was more popular than football, but you couldn't keep any bird you fancied. The most impressive were reserved for the most important people.
Dignified, powerful, lord and master of all he surveyed, the king was without a doubt the most important man in the country. So, he needed a bird to match.
My liege, your evening.
Thank you. Come on. Just look. What an aristocrat. Right down to the haughty expression. But to really see these birds at their noble best, you've got to see them in the air. Ready? Come on.
Nobody but the king had the room to fly an eagle. In the wild, their territories stretch for 18,000 acres. As they cruise on their king-sized wings, they really are lords of the air. Of course, ordinary people just didn't have the space to keep an eagle, but that didn't rule them out from keeping birds of prey.
So what sort of bird could the average working man fly? Well, it had to be something small, easy to keep, and cheap to run. A little like this. Come on. A kestrel. Everyone knows the kestrel. They're pretty common. A bit like me. But don't let that fool you. They're still really effective hunters, especially good at catching small mammals.
Kestrels have got to be the ultimate economy-sized birds of prey. They can soar and hover just about anywhere, so it was the ideal bird for the working man to fly for pleasure. And of course, help with keeping down the local rodents was really appreciated.
So who got the flashiest bird of all? Well, it was the medieval equivalent of a man about town, the squire. And reserved especially for him was this beauty, the peregrine falcon. It may not be as big as an eagle or as small and dainty as a kestrel, but it's faster than both.
Chasing down other birds in mid-air, peregrines are the sports cars of the falconry world, and in a dive they can clock speeds of over 100 miles an hour. Now with that sort of performance, you can see why to any falconer they were simply the top of the range models.
So there you are, gentle viewer, the ancient and noble art of falconry, a pastime to suit all persons, whether high or low.
Because so many kings and queens of England lived at the tower, it was constantly under threat of attack. And so, not surprisingly, it was very well defended. And these cannons would be fired at anyone who came too close. But now here's Nick with a plant who has its very own way of defending itself.
My favourite, stinging nettles soup. But I'm not in pain though, because by cooking them, I've destroyed their ability to sting. But you wouldn't want to be getting too close to them when they're alive, because that sting really is quite painful. And that's caused by this plant's incredibly sophisticated defence system. Look closely and the weapons are revealed. A forest of tiny but rather nasty hairs. These hairs are made of silica, which is like glass. It's both fragile and sharp. In fact, it's so sharp, it could quite easily burst this balloon. Watch this. But puncturing is only the half of it. Each tiny hair is full of poison. And when something brushes against it, the hair works like a syringe, giving an injection. That poison contains so many nasty concentrated chemicals that my skin will react almost immediately. Time to sacrifice my hand. To show the rash developing, we're going to film it on this camera, which will speed up the action. Oh, that hurts. The poison takes effect almost straight away, working its way deep into the flesh and bringing up that horrid rash. Believe me, that sting is enough to put you off touching nettles for the rest of your life. And that's precisely why they do it. It's to stop animals eating their lush green leaves. By cooking stinging nettles, you're destroying those hairs and that poison. So, although they can be a bit of a pain in the arm, if you heat them up properly, at least they're not a pain in the stomach.
Beef eaters, or yeoman warders as they like to be known as these days, are the oldest uniformed armed guards in the world, and they've been looking after the royals for about 700 years. Anyway, now here's Howie with one of the oldest living creatures in the world.
Birthday cake. But it's not for me. Do I look that old? No, it's for my mate Bernie, who's 75 today. There you go, Bernie.
Bernie is a giant tortoise, and believe it or not, at 75 years old, he's still a youngster. Giant tortoises come from the remote islands of Aldabra in the Indian Ocean, and it's said that they can live for up to 200 years. With this much time on their hands, these tortoises can afford to take life easy.
They go at their own pace, which is nearly stationary.
They are one of the slowest animals on the planet. At full speed, Bernie would take about an hour to sprint the length of a football pitch.
But give him a break. If you had a shell nearly 1.5 meters long and you weighed in at over 200 kilograms, you wouldn't be too nifty on your feet either. So the big question is, why is he so big? Well, nobody really knows, but the theory goes something like this. Because they come from an island where there's no competition from other plant eaters like sheep or goats, they can do something that smaller tortoises only dream of. Eat everything and grow extremely large.
And because there are no predators on Aldabra, they just keep on growing and growing and growing.
So it's all down to having no predators and no competition. Until now. So are you going to eat this cake or what?
And now here comes some more golden oldies of the animal world. The Tower of London was home to the first ever zoo in Britain. Centuries ago, crowds would gather to see the King's polar bear fishing in the River Thames. In fact, animals from all over the world were kept here that were given as pets by kings and queens from other lands. And now here's Janice, who's met a girl with her very own collection of animals.
Jenny Smith's day begins with breakfast for 92.
It starts about 7:30ish and it's hectic. It carries on from there really. I have to chop up all the fruit for the monkeys, tons and tons. And some of them are a bit picky as well, so we have to vary their diets a lot. Then we have to feed everybody and go around giving them all the dinner, and then we have to clean everybody out to make sure they're nice and neat and tidy. There's a lot to do.
Jenny's been helping her father Rob at the Gentle Shore Sanctuary since she was 7 years old.
What do you think's the matter here? I think she's got something wrong with her wing.
I went along to find out more about the work of the centre and meet some of the latest casualties.
Let's have a look, see how long these wings. Well, that one didn't seem too bad.
This tawny owl was found lying injured on the side of a country road. Animals like this are constantly brought to the Gentle Shore Sanctuary in need of extra special care.
There, so I think she's probably just had a thump with the car. So what we'll do, we'll just strap that wing up and leave her for a couple of days, see how she goes.
How many casualties do you get in?
We have about 200 a year.
Really?
Yeah, we have a lot.
And it's not just birds, is it?
No, it started off that way, but now we've got everything from snakes, raccoons to monkeys and all sorts. Would you like to have a look?
I'd love to.
What have we got here?
This is Bonnie. Bonnie's our Arctic fox. She was actually rescued from a fur farm. If you look at Bonnie's tail, you see it's quite short, so she wasn't able to be used for a coat or anything.
Lucky escape for her.
Yeah, definitely. And these are our coaties, and it's feed time for them.
What's their story?
They came from a zoo that had closed down, and they were either going to be put to sleep if they couldn't find a home for them.
Is this their normal diet? Cheese biscuits?
No, they eat a lot of things, mainly fruit and chicken, but we give them cheesy biscuits as a treat. These are our marmosets.
Goodness, there are loads of them.
There's only 12.
And they were all one person's pets, were they?
Yeah, what happened was an old lady had them and kept them in a bedroom. Unfortunately, she passed away and nobody wanted them, so then they did a home. Well, it's really nice to be able to get so close to animals, but it's a shame that we have to do it. If people checked out about their pets before they went and bought them, we wouldn't have to.
But of all the sanctuary's animals, Jenny's favourite is Pepe the squirrel monkey.
So what's his story then?
He was another pet that somebody had had, and he decided they couldn't keep him anymore. He had to have a home, didn't he, Pepe?
And so he came to you?
Yeah, and we look after him now.
And so he just hangs on your shoulder, does he, all day?
He does, yeah.
It must be really good having your own zoo here, but it's a lot of hard work, isn't it?
It is, yes, definitely. Well, it really is hard work, but it's worth it in the end.
Ta-da!
Ooh. Ooh. Years ago, you'd always have found the most important politicians of the day attending the king at the tower. But these days, it seems, famous politicians can turn up almost anywhere, as Janice found out.
If I told you I was off to meet Tony and Cherie, you'd probably think I was going to number 10 Downing Street to meet the Prime Minister and his wife. Wrong. Tony and Cherie happen to be a pair of black and white ruffed lemurs. These two are only 8 weeks old, but they're already very good and agile climbers. Just look at this. Off you go. They have to be good climbers because at home in the forests of Madagascar, their mothers leave them alone in the treetops while they go and find food. And if you're on your own, you've got to be able to jump and swing right out of trouble. For a lemur, that's easy, as just like their relatives the monkeys, they've got strong, long, flexible toes and a specially bendy tail to help balance. In Madagascar, the word lemur actually means ghost. And if you look at their huge staring eyes, you can just imagine how the locals might get a fright when all they saw at night were those huge eyes shining down from the trees. Well, these two are no ghosts, and they're anything but scary. In fact, they're dead cute. And yep, Tony and Cherie definitely get my vote.
A trip down the River Thames was the last journey ever taken by many kings and queens on the way to the Tower of London for their execution. But it isn't just this river that you find travelling kings. Salmon, regally known as the king of all fish, make an incredible journey over thousands of miles, as Nick discovered.
Every year, salmon gather in huge shoals off the coast of Greenland. It's the start of an epic migration that takes them all the way across the Atlantic Ocean and back to the rivers where they were born. By the time they reach our shores, they'll have travelled thousands of miles. But the trickiest part of their journey is yet to come, as I'm about to find out. I'm going to try and be a salmon. For a human, paddling a canoe up an estuary is a pretty relaxing experience. But for the salmon making their way up the river, it's a very different story. They're a rich meal for many mammals and birds. And once the word spreads that the fish are running, everyone heads to the river for a spot of angling. Those fish that do manage to avoid being someone's lunch, the journey doesn't get any easier. As you can see, the current's getting a lot stronger. I'll give up. I think it's time to abandon the canoe. But for the salmon, there's no choice. They've got to keep battling the current, and as the water gets shallower, the struggle becomes even more intense. For day after day, they fight on with the stamina of Olympic swimmers until at last they get a chance to rest.
I am absolutely exhausted. I could do with a rest, and I could do with a bit of this chocolate. But strictly speaking, I shouldn't, because salmon don't eat on their entire river journey. But they do allow themselves to rest, especially in nice still pools like this one. So I'm going to go and see if I can join them.
You can understand them needing a break at this stage in the journey, and this is a great place to see them. But it's only a short rest. Not eating means you've got to keep pushing on. And if they stay in the pools too long, the water level could drop, leaving them trapped. So they wait until enough rain has fallen to raise the river to a raging torrent.
With the water roaring away like it is behind me on this weir, it's an ideal time for the salmon to try and move upstream. Now, most salmon don't have crash hats, but I've come prepared and I'm going to give it a go.
With a flick of the tail, salmon literally throw themselves into the air, sometimes leaping 3 meters clear of the water.
There's thousands of gallons pouring over this weir every minute, and it makes struggling upstream rather difficult. I mean, I really don't know how the salmon do it. I mean, they've got no arms and legs.
Salmon just don't give up. They leap again and again until they make it to the top.
It's no good. I've given up. I'm no match for these fish. Oh.
Once the salmon have passed the rapids, they're really on the home straight. And with a subtle shortcut, so was I. As they get closer to the source of the river, the end of the journey is in sight. It's been so tough that only 1 in 10 will have made it. The remaining fish now pair up and spawn. Having dug out a little hollow, the female lays her eggs, and at the same time they're fertilised by the male. With a flick of the tail, they're safely buried, and it's all over. The end of the journey has come, and most of the adults are so exhausted that they die. But amazingly, some do survive, swim back to the ocean and do the whole journey again.
Well, in my opinion, it really is a hats off to the salmon. They really do deserve their title as king of the fish.
Well, I don't know about king of the fish. I felt like king of the castle here at the tower. Anyway, that's it for today's Regal Really Wild show. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Next week we go underwater in Gibraltar with the fish that live on a rusty old wreck. Find out which creature pops out of a hole to snatch a free lunch. Enjoy the magic of nature's recyclers, mushrooms. And meet the cutest bandit posse in the West.
Kipper returns with a brand new series here on CITV next Wednesday. Now, I'm afraid I have to release the Animaniacs. Da-dum-dee-da-dee-dum.